Hello everyone, it's Silvia from Parcel Locker. Welcome to my channel. I have just finished watching the live from the three fat readers, Lisa, Dani and Dustin, and their tag Thankful Tarot 23. And it was such a fun video that I loved going through all of the choices that they were showing us. And so as soon as the video finished, I thought to myself, why not responding with a VR? So let's have a look at my choices. So the first prompt is a deck that taught you a valuable lesson this year. And I really had to think hard about this prompt because there are so many decks that taught me valuable lessons throughout the years. And obviously, it had to be a deck that I used the most this year, let's say. And that was already helping out in deciding which way to go. But on the other hand, I also thought that I really wanted to bring up a deck that meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to me because of a number of reasons. Because, I reached out to a dear friend of mine that had it, and she was happy to pass it on to me for a very reasonable price, because this deck is actually out of print and hard to find and incredibly expensive if you want a copy. Although I have heard that it's going to be reprinted, rumors. and I thought, okay, it really needs to be an important one, because yes, it's true that each and every deck teaches me a valuable lesson. There are very few instances in which a deck is not really doing anything for me, and that would be a reason why I end up rehoming that deck. So it was really hard, but I had to go with the Slow Tarot. So the Slow Tarot by Lacey Bryant, as I said, unfortunately this deck is out of print at this time, but there are rumors about a possible reprint. I did not check myself, but I do trust the person that told me that. Let's have a look. This deck is amazing. It's a bit of a mix of your traditional take on the RWS and also, let's say, a modern take on the traditional symbols. And I, generally speaking, would not necessarily enjoy that. However, this deck, it's almost as if we're opening my eyes on the possibility, you see, of going with the flow, going with the way in which it is presenting the cards. There's another thing that this text was actually featured in my VR response. What was it? I think it was Decks That Make Me a Liar or something like that, or Tarot of Exceptions and something like that. I think it was the tag with Tarot of Exceptions, and it was a video about me going on about a number of things that would normally represent a deal breaker for me, but because of this and this and this reason, this deck in particular is making a liar out of me because it goes against my rules. But I still have it, I still love it, and I will keep it, and I will ever rehome it. And one of the things I talked about is the inconsistency. So I don't necessarily appreciate inconsistency when it comes to the setup, not inconsistency when it comes to meanings. That's a different story. But layout and aesthetics inconsistencies are actually acting on my brain receptors in a very weird way, in which I tend, if I have a reading, for example, you see these aces, for example, are not bordered, so they're borderless. And if I see a reading like this, my brain tends to ignore this card because it's just the way it's wired. And in some cases, I will even, prepare myself subconsciously to read the central card because it doesn't have borders as some kind of an oracle, which is not. It's the Ace of Wands, and and then you've got the Ace of Cups, for example. So this would be one of the reasons why it would be a deal breaker for me. However, this deck definitely makes me a liar because it's just so profound and interesting and unique. And as I said, it does have that kind of a mix between tradition and modernity. And I actually really enjoy that. So this deck taught me a valuable lesson, first and foremost because of that, because it really taught me that I don't necessarily always have to stick to my rules whenever I appreciate a deck. In particular, the fact that there are inconsistencies now does not bother me anymore. I really enjoy the mix between the modern take and the traditional symbols, and that normally would be another deal breaker for me. There are a few decks that I had a look at, I used for a while, and then I had to rehome because they did have that. And so it's more than one valuable lesson, but and it's also, may I say, the artwork. I know that I was talking about something else, but the artwork in this deck, it is just so beautiful that honestly, I mean, how can you not love this deck? It's everything. It's so beautiful. The interpretation on some of the cards is so intense, so powerful. As I said, I really enjoy at this point. So when I was hesitating in getting this deck, is because I saw this card, which is the Two of Coins. And it's clearly a modern take on the Two of Coins, even though the meanings, you know, is still about that juggling and between two things and not knowing necessarily where to go or what to do, but still, you know, having to realize that these are good possibilities that you're juggling. It's not something, it's not the Two of Swords, for example, where you feel stuck. And what I really appreciate is the fact that even though at the beginning I thought that this really modern interpretation of the Two of Coins would have put me off somehow, I actually really enjoy it. And I don't know if it's the same for you, but when I have to work to appreciate something because of one particular detail, and I do cross over, so I convince myself and I appreciate, for example, in this case, a deck. Whenever I see the reason why I was hesitating at first, now I feel so very confident and actually appreciative of the fact that thanks to this card, I had to know this deck a little bit more than what I would have under different circumstances. And the Six of Coins, sorry, the Five of Coins is also really, really great. So the main reason why I think that this deck taught me a very valuable lesson, and this was, you know, the deck that I've chosen to show you for this prompt is this one. So it's the Star card. So this is the Star card of the Slow Tarot. This card is the reason why I chose this deck. Let me explain. So basically 2023 is, and you know, I'll be able to soon say has been, the year of the star for me. So my particular card, major arcana card of the year for 2023, based on the calculations from Mary Kay Greer, by the way. So your birthday and birth month, and then the year 2023 is the Star card. So as you can imagine, I come from the year of the Tower, okay? 2022 was my Tower year for many, many reasons. I had so many Tower moments. Everything that was not seriously grounded fell apart. And that was okay, because even though I hated that when it was happening, I have to say that it's something that needed to happen. So I was really, at the end of last year, when I was like, oh, well, you know what? I mean, next year, Star card, score, you know, ka-ching. Finally, something would go better. And I had my expectations for 2023 were so high that I regrettably spent almost the entire year, until I saw this card, almost the entire year, thinking that everything that happened did not live up to the expectations, and I felt cheated. I felt like this is not a star year. Really, after the Tower year, I was looking forward to something so much better than what it actually has been, that I felt cheated. And I was kind of upset. And I was like, and next year is going to be the moon, so it's not like I'm going to, you know, it's not the sun yet. So I really felt blue about it until I saw this card, and this card made me change my mind, and it taught me a valuable lesson. That star is also the recognizing the path ahead. It's knowing what the direction is. It doesn't necessarily mean that you got there already. It's not the arrival card. It couldn't be, it could not have been. Because after the Tower moments of 2022, I couldn't possibly just resolve everything in a snap of a finger. And it needed introspection, it needed processing, everything needed to find a new foundation, be, grounding on new solid bases. And a lot of processing and trying to understand my position in all this and what I felt about it and what I wanted to do. And for many, many reasons, I was blind to that. I did not recognize what was actually going on, that throughout the whole year, I was given a direction and it was the right direction. But because I still had to walk, to get there, I felt like I was cheated, because in my eyes, I have put so much hope in the hope card, because this is the start for me, is the card of hope. It's the card of healing. It's the card of the support from your ancestors and your beloved ones that are not there with you anymore, but they are there, even more so than a physical presence, because they support you. And seeing this card, it felt exactly like I was. It felt like, okay, I could not identify with any of the other star cards because they're so still. There is so much blessing in any star card. There's no trouble. There's no, you just go your own way. And actually, most of the time you stop because, you're close to a pond and you draw water and there's stars and there's that atmosphere of peace. This is not peaceful. And that's 2023 for me. So I do not feel cheated by 2023 anymore. I feel like I was the one that I was looking at it the wrong way. And so this card actually taught me a valuable lesson, because he told me the right way to look at my life with the star card in 2023, where the waters are still choppy to the point that you still see some water, dripping inside the boat. I imagine this is a boat. And there's a bucket that is trying to contain it, but it's still overwhelming. And there's another vessel on the other side, and you're like thinking and hoping and really praying that it's something that is going to save you, but you're still active. You're still making your way through. You haven't sighted land yet, but you know where it is because you have a sextant. That's the instrument that tells you where you are, your positioning is in relationship to the stars. And I love the fact that I know that land is nearby. Why? Because I can see birds. And so that's the sign. And so it made me, in a way, it saved my year, in the sense that I was kind of really upset, but it saved not my year, but it saved my view of 2023. And so I'm so very grateful to this star card for showing me that the star is not necessarily having arrived, but knowing where to go and knowing that there is hope, because you can see land. You can see the signs of land approaching, perhaps when land is not on sight yet. The Slow Tarot. So for the next prompt, I'm actually going to cheat, because the prompt is a deck that you are thankful someone gifted you this year. And I'll have to go with plural. So two, not just one. And I have to go with these two. So the Tarot Landscape by Francesca Matteoni, illustrated by Yoshimari, published by Bybee. And the Golden Dragon Tarot, which is unfortunately, sorry about that, but it's an out-of-print deck from 1994. This one has been published by A.G.M. Muller. And these two have been gifted to me by two different people that I equally love and are equally amazing. And by gifting me these decks, it shows that they know me so much. And I am so very grateful, because, and Please don't get me wrong, I am grateful to anyone that is so wonderful to actually reach out to me, even for just a word or, you know, an offer, or something to support the channel, or, you know, even a deck, or everything else that I have received from all of you. I am thankful for this year. You are the reason why I'm here. You're the reason why I'm still doing whatever it is that I do and that I want to continue. And you're the reasons why I will start my membership on the 1st of December, because I want to give back. I want to be able to give something back. So these two, let's talk about the Golden Dragon. So if you're not familiar with this deck, this is an amazing deck. This is, as I said, unfortunately out of print and hard to find as well. And so I'm even the more grateful to this person for sending it to me. These are the backs, so beautiful. And I'm just going to talk about the deck. So this is, apart from the fact that it's a fantastic and so beautiful deck, if you like this kind of art style, you know, you would enjoy this deck so very much, because it's absolutely amazing. I love all of these cards. I mean, look at the Six of Swords, it's so beautiful, so evocative, so complex and daunting in a way. And that's the reason why I love a deck, you know, why... Of course, when something is beautiful, I can recognize the aesthetic value, but what I really fall in love with is when something is not just beautiful, but it's also interesting. It resonates with me because it tells me something about myself, or it tells me something that I don't know, or it makes me want to improve my life or improve myself as a person. That is one of the main things that I look for in a deck. And even though I have to say that most of my decks do that for me, but with such a large collection, you will excuse me if I say that not all of them resonate with me. So some of them resonate more than others. And I mean, look at this Star card, how beautiful this is. But there's another reason why I love this deck so much. And it is because, and I say this, I've said this already a couple of times, so you will recognize the story. When I went to China a couple of times, when I used to work, because one of our production site was in Kunshan, and I remember every time that I was going there, I was buying scrolls, you know, paintings, and in particular because I just love that kind of art. And in particular, one of them, I brought it back as a present to my dad. Because he also likes, he was really into this kind of art style. And it was very typical, very, very beautiful. Also very delicate, I have to say. And he really liked it, and he appreciated it, and he displayed it. And okay, I need to say, my dad never liked anything that I bought for him, like ever. You know, I was a Virgo. And my husband is a Virgo as well, but he has a lot of completely different charts. But in any case, so my dad was a typical person that was never happy, always very critical and everything. And the fact that he immediately said that he loved it, the scroll that I got for him, and he displayed it on the wall, and he was very proud of it. And every time that someone was coming to his house, he was actually pointing at the scroll, and he was saying, my daughter got it for me, you know, in China, and she brought it back. And so that made me smile every time. I was so happy that he liked it. It was not just for personal confirmation, of course I had that, because, you know, but it was also because I made him happy, and that was the reason why I bought that scroll, and that was wonderful. And so when he died, unfortunately, I wasn't in Italy. I could not go to Italy because Australia closed the borders, and I was not allowed to leave the country during COVID. And basically a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, just went there with another friend of mine. So it was two of my closest friends that live in the same city. So they went to his place, and, you know, thanks to the phone, you know, they were showing me stuff, and they went through all of his stuff, and I told them what to take and what to leave behind. And so obviously, how do you do that in a few hours, a full lifetime? It's so difficult to decide what you want to keep about your dad. It was a horrible choice, and I couldn't even be there. Obviously, it was very painful for me. So of course I was distracted. I was very emotional, and so they couldn't. The conversation wasn't continuous. They called me, and then they hung up because I was being emotional, and so I needed a moment for myself. And then we were back online, and then so it was a bit of an ordeal, and I forgot about this scroll painting. And these two wonderful friends of mine, they just, they saw it and they said, no, Silvia, we want this. Let's take it. And when I was finally able, after a year and a half, I was finally able to go to Italy and retrieve all my dad's stuff that in the meantime had been stored by one of the two. I saw it, and I was so very grateful that they took the decision to take it. Because now it's in my house, and I hang it in a wall. And so this deck, because the art style is exactly like this, and there's a couple of cards. This one, for example, it reminds me so much of that scroll because it is on the water. There's a couple of boats, they're fishermen, and there's this kind of typical, if you're not familiar with the style, but you can imagine this. So there's always a really nice depth of field in these paintings. So you look into the distance, there's always mountains in the distance, and this is exactly what, even though in a different way, but it was exactly what the scroll was about. So this deck, I'm so very grateful to have received it as a gift, because it reminds me of what happened. It reminds me of friendship. It reminds me of the love for my dad and the fact that he's not there with me anymore. But that was the one thing that I did for him that he actually appreciated. And that's a wonderful feeling. The second deck, as I've shown you before, is the Tarot Landscape. Let me open it. So I actually checked. I think that now this deck is available to, well, let's say globally or worldwide, because that didn't used to be the case a couple of months ago. I think it was only available in the US or maybe just in Europe. To be honest, I don't remember. It is available now, so Tarot Landscapes. And this is such a wonderful deck. It's so beautiful and so meaningful. And of course, there is a Northern Lights card. How could there not be? Because of course, I love it so much. Again, if you watch my channel, you will know all the stories that I have about the Northern Lights and the foxes as well, and the reindeers. Whether this is, I think it's a moose. So I thank you for clarifying that there are mooses in Northern Europe as well. I've only ever seen reindeers in Arctic Norway, but that was a wonderful experience. I love this deck so much. Look at this Ten of Swords. I love that you have the suggestion of the loss of, the defeat, the ending of the Ten of Swords, but there is a light pointing to the feathers. And so you also have the suggestion of the redemption, what I would call, for the Ten of Swords. Each and every one of these cards represent an actual place on earth, an actual experience by the creator. And I loved going through the guidebook and reading about all this. And there are so many interesting details, for example, with the emperor, and the skyscrapers suggesting authority, also in the financial world, for example. But then you see this spider, and this spider it accounts for the way in which the emperor also has, it's very grounded as a figure, and it's not just skyscrapers, out there in the clouds. It also has an element of grounding, of, bringing back order, let's say, into the chaos, and also the orchestration and the strategy. So it's such an amazing deck. The Queen of Wands with this fox, you know, the fox that actually is rooted in the roots of the tree, and it's giving life. So it's exposing all the strong features, the skills, and because the Queen of Wands obviously is the archetype of the performer, so we want to see that in a card, or we feel like we need to see that in a card. What I invite you to do with this deck is not necessarily to you know, to impose another meaning on the cards, but just feel, go read your guts and feel what you feel about the cards. But this to me is very much, you know, reconnecting to the idea of the Queen of Wands and the vitality of the Suit of Wands, and the strength and the power of fire as an alchemical element that gives life. So the Queen of Wands is also the life giver. And, you know, the Salmon with the Justice card. So it is an amazing deck. I love the aspect for the Ace of Swords, because of course, you know, the mind is not necessarily out there, and you just see, you know, 25% out in the open, but there's so much that goes on behind that, or beneath that, and which is your thoughts. So I would love, by the way, if for any of these decks, because I talked to David, one of my subscribers, and he was saying that he would like for me to do more deep dives. I think that, I don't know when I'm going to post this, but I'm filming it today when I actually posted the video on the deep dive on the millennial tarot. And so I'm receiving a lot of requests for other deep dives. I generally don't do deep dives because honestly, I tend to take them a lot more seriously than I should. And I do a lot of research, and I get really exhausted. So it is very labor intense for me. However, if there is a deck that you really enjoy and you would really want to hear my take on that, first of all, it is going to be part of the membership. So one of the perks of my membership will be the studying of a deck. Not so much as in a prolonged study that goes on for months, but just deep dives on decks, let's say. And you can obviously ask me, send me some requests for decks that you would like me to talk about. So if any of these decks catches your attention and you would like to know more about them, just let me know in the comments below. I'll be more than happy to consider it, you know, taking everything into account. But there's so much going on in these cards. I really look at the full card, for example, how beautiful it is. I love the fact that there's already a rainbow. In many decks you will see that the rainbow is actually when the fool completes their journey. For example, there is a deck that does that in a very clear way, and it's the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum. Now, the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum has got the lemniscate. I don't know if you remember it, but it's all about the obviously Holy Spectrum, as in spectrum of color. So color is very important whenever there is a choice of a color in the cards of that deck. It is symbolic. You can be assured that it is symbolic. So the Fool has the lemniscate with and it's, let's say, it's connected to the World card, and they both have the same kind of aesthetics and the same kind of matrix they're based on, but the difference is with the presence or not of the rainbows in the Fool card as opposed to the World card, which is very interesting for me, because it means that the rainbow, like in this card, is seen as the beginning. But to me, the rainbow is also the ending of one cycle and the suggestion of the beginning of the next cycle. So there is continuity, and I love to see that in the major arcanas. So all that to say, there's a rainbow. It's really cute. See, it's something that I really want to prepare you, to warn you about. This card is amazing because it's the oasis in the desert, and it's the wish come true, and a Nine of Cups. I have different ways to read the Nine of Cups depending on what the image is on the specific deck, because in many cards you will see that there's the isolation of the single person. Even in the traditional RWS, you have only one person. And that to me is very evocative in the sense that it really clearly tells you that your wish come true, it's, let's say it's not 100%, you need to share that with the community. And that's why you're prompted to do kind of a work on yourself and, you know, progress onto the 10 of Cups. This one, however, it's something that elicits a different kind of interpretation for me, in the sense that I can definitely see how this reflects a wish come true. You're exhausted, even though, you know, you're this is a dromedary, by the way. It's one hop only, one hump. So you're in the desert, you've been searching for water for God knows how long, and you finally find it. And this is that feeling of, oh, finally. So it's almost as if you were a 9 of Wands, where someone actually takes, you know, heals your wounds, or takes away the burden from you, which doesn't happen in the 9 of Wands, because we know what happens in the 10 of Wands. So I actually appreciate this 9 of Cups, because you know, it's something more. I always love it when there's a different take, or perhaps an even deeper take on the cards. And this is the 7 of Cups, and it's just fantastic because I read the guidebook, and this is actually something that the author did not experience herself in first person. It's something that she heard about, and someone was telling her that they saw this photo of an octopus riding a jellyfish. So this is actually something that happened, but not to the creator, but it's something that, you know, and the Great Barrier Reef is not far from not far from Sydney. That's not entirely true, because you still have to fly to Brisbane and then further on. But what I mean is that living in Australia gives you the possibility to approach the Great Barrier Reef in a much easier way than if you were living in Europe, for example. So it's closer than for others. And I have been there so many times. I've never witnessed something like that, but it is entirely possible. I completely believe it, because this is a kind of really shockingly amazing things that can happen when you go underwater. So I love this deck so much. The only thing is that I love it so much, but I still, and it's coming, I ordered an Oracle deck, but it has to come from the US and it hasn't arrived yet. There seems to be already some delays in deliveries, even though we're just at the end of November, which is heartbreaking. But I will look forward to show you what I mean by, perhaps if I get it on time, I will show you the pairing of this deck with my favorite pairings in December. So this is the Tarot Landscapes. So the next prompt is a deck that gave you a new perspective on the tarot. And I had to go with the Tarot of Vampires. This is, so there's dozens, okay, there's dozens of Tarot of Vampires. In particular, I have at least 6. So I need to specify, obviously, although you probably recognize it because this is a very famous edition. This is by Ian Daniels, and it's a Llewellyn publication. And the reason why I'm going with this deck is because of the guidebook. Now, hang in there, because it's not for the reasons that everyone would think. Okay, this is called the Phantasmagoria. Now, if you're familiar with Llewellyn decks, the guidebooks tend to have a different title than the tarot, which is fine, but obviously if you keep them in a box. If you don't, if you keep them in bags and then you put, like I do, all of the books, you know, side by side in a shelf, it's kind of confusing. But it's okay, because it does say Ian Daniels here on the back of the book, so it's fine. The reason why everyone loves this book is because it gives so much information, and I agree to that. However, the reason why I chose this deck, because it gave me a new perspective on tarot, is because this book taught me that I don't always have to agree with an author's interpretation of the card. Let's see what I mean. So first and foremost, this is your typical, I would say it is your typical Llewellyn cardstock, so either you like it or you hate it. I personally think it's very practical. It's easy to shuffle, you know. The only thing is that many of these decks are quite catching the light, so you know, it's I'm not a fan when you're filming, when you're taking photos, because you have to find the right angle, and most of the time you don't. At least I don't. Although I have to say that ever since I moved, I don't have the skylight anymore, and that is a huge improvement, because the skylight was just terrible. Because I was always, it was right on top of my filming area, and I was always casting a shadow, so it was just not working. You're probably familiar with this deck, and it is very sensual, I have to say, very sophisticated. Like, I would definitely think, you know, it belongs to the theme. It's a very much vampire deck. It really gives you that idea. You are immediately, you know, engaged by the cards. You enter this fantasy world, this gothic world, which is, I mean, to me, it's very appealing, but I understand that it's not everyone's cup of tea. And on top of everything, I also understand, and I completely agree with someone who would, let's say, prefer to use this deck for, you know, readings during October, that particular time of the year where, of course, you think about Halloween, and so you like those kind of vibes. Samhain for the northern hemisphere, in the southern hemisphere is totally different vibe, but you can also find that kind of spring. You know, it's not necessarily just autumn or fall related. There are a few cards that could be ambivalent. I like it. It's something that normally would not have been my aesthetics, but everyone changes. And we are entitled to change our taste in everything that we experience in life. And so even though I'm very late to join the party, because I know that everyone has been raving about this deck for at least over a year, I'm very happy that now it's finally made it in my collection. Now, the reason why I chose this deck, because it gave me a new perspective, is the Three of Knives. So the new perspective is not because it taught me a new way to look at the Three of Knives. It just taught me that I don't always have to agree on the author's interpretation of a card. That I don't have to force myself, that I don't have to change my mind if I feel that I need to stick to my guns. So, and just to give you a very concrete example, this is the Three of Knives. Which is the Three of Swords, so it's the suit of the mind. So if you watch my channel, you'll know that I tend to read numerologically. I could be swayed to read in a different way if I found that the reasoning behind that reading were based on something that I can share, that I can agree on. And this one doesn't, but it does. Only because I disagree. It doesn't mean that I don't like the deck. It doesn't mean that I don't respect the author, which I actually do, very much so. It doesn't mean that I don't enjoy the book, or that I don't read the card the way that I would read it. So I know that it's difficult to show you something without necessarily, you know, just by talking about it. So I would definitely, without further ado, jump into, so this is the guidebooks. And I'm just going to read what the description is. So we've got a few information here about the alchemy, kindred spirits, etc. I'm not interested in that for now. What I'm interested in is the essence and the message. So the essence says the development of thought, absolutely on board with that. Insights gained from sorrow, absolutely. Readjustment, melancholy, a sharp clarity or unwelcome news that brings pain. Fixing the truth, freeing ourselves from the past, releasing emotional tension, tears, and unhappiness, seeking help from others or from the everlasting, releasing control, a secret revealed, hope. That, okay, it's difficult to separate what I, let's say, am on board with and what I actually kind of disagree with in all of this. Let's say it this way: everything that is related back to emotions to me is not reflected in the Three of Swords or Knife or, you know, air. The suit of the mind is the suit of the mind. What happens is that, of course, if you have this concept of growth, you know, the 3 is the number of growth, numerologically speaking. So you move on from a Two of Swords, which is a situation in which you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. You don't necessarily have all the information to take a choice. You're blindfolded. You're incredibly scared of making a choice. Why? Because if you don't see where you're going, you're scared of falling. You're scared of hurting yourself. So you're paralyzed by fear. And that is, you know, the natural evolution to that is the Three of Swords, because of course, then you start overthinking, you start worrying, you start thinking that, okay, I have to make a choice. I don't necessarily have an idea of what I'm doing. Let's go over it one more time. Let's try to regain that control that I lost in the Two of Swords. So you see where I'm going with this. It is all in the mind, and in many, many cases, of course, that will produce anxiety. Of course, that anxiety will be situated metaphorically in your heart. So if we look at that Three of Swords, at that concept behind the Three of Swords, through the lens of the worry that comes to the mind that has some kind of a spilling into the heart, absolutely I'm on board. However, if you keep on reading, you will see that it talks a lot about feelings, and at a certain point, so at the end of the message, and I'll just read it, we should recognize that feelings pass and are not the whole of reality, only of our current perception. Maybe we have hurt someone's feeling unintentionally or intentionally. Is it time to make amends so that we can finally forgive ourselves? Perhaps it is time to forgive another for hurting us so that we can free ourselves of sorrow. That is a different, I think that is a step in a different direction. I could read all of this, but I don't want to bore you. So there is a lot that I really like in this description of the message. For example, the Three of Knives is about absorbing loss through sadness in order to gain happiness. Absolutely. You are in the process of grieving or, you know, going through something, and you have to go through that, but it takes the whole suit of swords in order to get there. The Four of Swords is because you've been thinking so much and overthinking so much, you kind of need a break. And the Five of Swords is pointing out that the information you had were actually wrong. It was someone talking behind your back that put you in a situation in which you're actually fighting for something that is not even true. So that's the gaslighting, that's the manipulation. The Six of Swords is the progression, the natural progression of the suit of swords, which, by the way, is my favorite suit in the sense that it really tells a story, and it makes you, tarot reader, a storyteller, not in the sense that you make up things, but in the sense that you are telling a story in such a way that the message is understandable to the person you're reading for. So I could go on and go through the whole suit of swords, and I might do that sooner or later, but you see where I'm going with this. This is the Three of Knives, of Swords, is not a card to be read by itself. There is context, and that's the reason why, even more so than any other cards. And so what I don't like is that the rest of the suit of swords or knives is pretty much following the evolution of, you know, your journey through the suit, but the Three of Knives, it actually lifts you up. It actually is not. It does have some kind of a extraction from this journey. And as such, I actually disagree with it. So when we look at the last part, as I read before, saying that you have to recognize that all the feelings pass and they're not reality, this can be probably reduced, even though I don't like the way it has been expressed. Your feelings pass and are not the whole of reality can be construed as something completely wrong. I understand the way it has been phrased here, but it could open up a can of worms. Only of a current perception, yes and no. Maybe we have hurt someone's feeling, and you know, the fact that refers back to feeling, and there's a lot that comes back to feeling in the rest of the message is just something that is not part of the way in which I read the Three of Knights. And just to, you know, make a long story short, I learned that I can actually disagree with an author's interpretation of a card and still love the card. Does it make sense? I hope it makes sense, and I hope I'm not, you know, talking too much, because hi, I'm Silvia, I talk a lot. So that's my biggest probably problem. I tend to talk a lot in my videos. You probably know by now. But this is what I think about the Three of Swords. And this is the giraffe in the room, okay? The elephant in the room. Because I know that the tarot community tends to, 90% of the tarot community tends to agree with the configuration of the pierced heart. A heart pierced by three swords. And everyone says that the Three of Knives is the card of heartbreak. So any tarot deck that shows me something different from that is always welcome. However, it doesn't necessarily have to be something I agree with. So this is a different way to look at the Three of Knives, but it's not something I agree with. And I am grateful to this tarot deck, the Tarot of Vampires by Ian Daniels, because it gave me a new perspective on tarot. So the next prompt is a deck that offered you comfort in a dark time this year. And I have to cheat a little bit again because I have to go with two decks. But the reason why I'm cheating this time is because these two actually go together. So they did provide me with comfort in a really dark time this year. And I would say more than once. And the way in which they provided me with comfort was for me to read them together, the way I usually do. So I'm just going to show you these two decks. So this is the Vessel Oracle. It's a Spirit Speak Oracle deck. So you know the company. They also made I think the Iris Oracle, but and there's a Tarot deck as well. I think, sorry about that. I think that the tarot is actually called Spirit Speak Tarot. I'm not entirely sure. I don't have it. But in any case, you will know. And for all of these decks, by the way, I'm going to put the link to the website in the description box below. So let's have a look. The Vessel Oracle. It's a tiny deck. I mean, not tiny, but it's a smaller kind of deck, especially when you consider the sizes of Oracle decks nowadays. So let's just put it here. This is the second deck, and it's the Modern Seer Tarot created and written by Kristen McGraw. Now, there's one thing that I have to say. Ever since I started showing this deck on my channel, I've been contacted a few times by people saying that they can't find it. I'm so very sorry. I have done research several times. I can't find it either. I think it's out of print, but more so, I think it was just, so Kristen is a paintress, and I'm a bit worried that this wasn't one-off, as in she felt like she needed to create this tarot deck. Truth be told, I'm so very grateful that she did, because otherwise I would not have had that kind of support when I needed it. But then she just, you know, that was it. And it was a limited run, it was a Kickstarter. Even I could put the website, the Kickstarter campaign, if you want, in the link below, but there is a website mentioned in the Kickstarter campaign. Unfortunately, that website has been deregistered, so it doesn't take you anywhere. But in any case, this is the deck, the Modern Seer Tarot, and it's a deck that is absolutely fantastic. I love the art style. I talked about this deck a few times in my channel because of the art style, mainly because it's the I recognize it's a very beautiful art style, and there is a so the brother of a very close friend of mine who's not with us anymore. Her brother is an artist, and he paints this way. So this, not exactly like this, he actually uses only one line to do a painting, but he's also very versatile, so he's got a different way also to paint. This is a very minimalist deck, but also the vessel, it doesn't clash with the vessel oracle, because I feel like they actually complement each other. But this deck was there for me because I think that the combination of the keywords of the vessel oracle, the simplicity and the elegance of both the cards with their minimalism when it comes to the line, of course, but also when it comes to the choice of colors, combined with the sense of strong presence that both of these decks have, it really constitutes that kind of grounding and support that you need in certain situations, or at least that I needed, you know, when I was going through those dark times. And working with these two decks together really sustained me. It really gave me the hug that I needed. It gave me the support, but also because I'm a very airy person, there's no two ways around that, and I have accepted that. I'm a brainy person, and you know, it is what it is. So in my case, in many cases, I don't just need a hug. I need a reason to feel better. I need something that resonates with me, with my mind, and that, you know, rationally makes me feel better. Not just it's okay, everything is going to be fine. Because even though I recognize the decks that do that, and I appreciate that, of course, everyone needs to hear that from time to time, even though we have different degrees of believing, you know, of trust in a sentence, in a phrase like that. So everything is going to be fine. How do you know that? How do you know that? That's my immediate response to anyone that is going to tell me, don't worry, everything is going to be fine, because I have seen many times in my life that that's not a guarantee. Never has been, never will be. So it, you know, for me, for this really weird personality that I have, I also need to reason about that. Okay, if you say that everything is going to be fine, let's have a look. Let's reason about it. Let's, you know, do some kind of investigation, even whether that has some kind of value or not, or is just something that you say. And these two decks actually together, that's what they do for me. Okay, it's not just the deck that tells you that everything is going to be fine. It's the deck that tells you, hey, everything is going to be fine because. And then it engages you in a conversation. It engages you in an analysis of what is, you know, necessarily that is going to change, and how it's going to change, and why that's going to be a good thing. So I am so very grateful to these two decks together, because these are the ones that offer me comfort in a dark time this year. So the Modern Seer Tarot and the Vessel Oracle. So the next prompt is a deck that you're thankful you took a chance on this year. And for me, it's the Walking Meditation Tarot by Dani Norman. This deck, so my edition is obviously already being printed, because otherwise it wouldn't be in my hands. But what I mean to say is that it's currently funding, I think it's the second edition, second printing, on a Kickstarter. So if you missed out on this deck when it was originally printed and released, you have the chance to you know, back the project. And I highly encourage you, if you like these aesthetics and like the deck, I highly encourage you to do that, because it's I feel that it's an underrated deck. Let's see what I mean with that. So this is a deck I had to take a chance on. Why? Because the concept behind this deck is indeed, it's called Walking Meditation. So when I did some research on the deck, I loved the aesthetic, so that wasn't a problem at all. My hesitancy was due to the fact that you have two guidebooks. One is, it says guidebook to Walking Meditation, pocketbook, and it's basically it is what the title says. So you're supposed to meditate and be guided in your walking, in your the walk you do to meditate. You're supposed to be guided by this book. There's a number of reasons why you will want to use it, or where the author feels that the deck can actually help you. So for example, help clearing physical pain, walk. So if the author imagines you and encourages you to focalize on your, for example, issue, that could be, for example, the pain, the physical pain, and they encourage you to go into the walk and follow the guidebook in order to be able to use the meditation to, you know, clearing that physical pain. Then there's affirmation walks, there's visualization walks, talk to another soul walk, and so on and so forth. The reason why I was hesitant, and then of course you have the normal guidebook, the reason why I was hesitant was that I honestly could not see how would that work. First of all, because even though I have been known to walk around while reading a book, which is, you know, disclaimer, do not do it because it's extremely dangerous. Always be aware of your surroundings when you walk, drive, anything. There's no other way to read than either standing still or sitting down, or, you know, laying down in bed or whatever. But please don't walk and read or get distracted. Absolutely. But going back, you know, I really hesitated because I was like, how is this going to work? So I have to read it. That's what I was thinking. Okay, I read, and this is very nice because there's a bit of a personal example. Then there's the author shares with you the technique, you know, they used during this kind of processing and clearing and healing. And this is basically what you're supposed to be doing afterwards, because, you know, you can't, as I said, please do not walk and read at the same time. So obviously you read it first, you think about it, and then, you know, there's an actual guiding. So for example, in this case, there's a few steps. Ask your pain what it is trying to tell you, what are the underlying issues of how this pain came to be. And then you go on, and there's questions, there's prompts for journaling, for meditation. There's, you know, everything that you can imagine that can help you by, you know, looking at the issue in a different way, for example, and so on and so forth. But, and so I was thinking to myself, I don't see how this is, you know, going to work for me, because I'm gonna, either I learn this by heart or I stop every now and then. There were a lot of, you know, ideas on how to achieve this, but I wasn't really satisfied by anything. What I did at the end, I was hesitating, but I found it in a Facebook group, and it was for a very, very reasonable price. And I thought to myself, yeah, you know what, let's give it a chance. Let's give it a chance, because I know that I may regret not getting it. And I'm so very happy and thankful that I did give it a chance, because indeed, this proved to be an incredibly helpful deck for exactly that purpose. So I think that you need to find your own way to include or incorporate meditation, and so the prompts from the guidebook into the use of the deck. Obviously, you're not even supposed to use the deck while walking. Again, please don't get distracted. It's very dangerous. But this, to me, and I'm just going to share the way I did it, and it could be working for other people, it could be completely wrong for others. So please don't take it as an advice, because it doesn't work for everyone. The way I did it was, I actually did meditation during the walk. I read the guidebook. I kind of retained a couple of the steps you're asked to go through. I couldn't retain the memory of all of them. It's also because I didn't want to force myself. When I meditate, I try to use my mind as less as possible, because I tend to be in a complete, you know, 2 of Swords, 3 of Swords kind of situation. And so I don't want my mind to take over, because walking for me is releasing that. And so I went through the steps before walking. I retained a couple of steps that were most significant for me. Then I went for a walk. I meditated during the walk by using those prompts. And then when I finished the walk, I went back home, wherever I was, and I did some journaling, and I did all that meditation again. At that time, though, I would have had something to associate when you do mind connection, so you have something to associate with the prompt. So if the first prompt was to feel at ease in your environment, I retained that during my meditation walk, and I, for example, connected that with the sight of a lake. I'm just brainstorming. When you go back home, you remember, because you have that association, now you do, you remember the association between feeling safe and the lake. So you meditate on that, and that becomes a way for you to actually incorporate that particular feeling safe while visualizing the lake into your next steps. This works for me, as I said, doesn't mean that it's working for everyone. This is the way I did that. I'm so very grateful that I have this deck because it works. For me, it works. Other than that, what I can tell you about this deck is that it's very beautiful. Aesthetically, it's a photography. So these are the author's photographs that then have been manipulated with, I don't necessarily know whether it's been done by painting on top of them, but there is a filter. I don't remember what it's called, but something that makes your photo look like painting. Does that make sense? I hope. And maybe that's what they've done. I have no idea. But it's a beautiful deck regardless of how it's been achieved. I don't think there's any AI in it, and it's a beautiful deck. I really enjoy it. I love the backs, by the way. Look how beautiful that is. I really, really like that. And it's a deck that, you know, is very seasonal as well, you know, and it's very enjoyable to look at. It's a very quiet, very peaceful kind of deck because there's no humans. There are a few animals here and there, not in all of the cards, as you can tell. And it's very purposeful, and I love the sun. That's for me, you know, the moment in which I enjoy the sun the most is at sunset. And so, of course, I love that. So this is the Walking Meditation Tarot. And this is my answer to the prompt, a deck you're thankful you took a chance on this year. And the last prompt is a deck that has become a workhorse this year. So I chose the Millennial Tarot because this is a deck that I really enjoy using with clients. I find that it's a deck that has a lot of prompts for very meaningful conversations. It's a deck that combines the visual capacity, let's say, of representing the meaning of the cards with the renaming of the cards. So basically the titles that have been assigned to the cards that don't necessarily they're not necessarily traditional. As a matter of fact, they're very modern, I should say. So the King of Pentacles is the sugar daddy. That's something that, you know, I was looking at a post on Instagram the other day, and there was exactly this. It was a meme, and there was someone say, we don't call, tarot readers don't call this person a sugar daddy. We call them King of Pentacles. So almost each, let's say 99% of these cards have an extremely well thought of way of renaming the titles of the cards. This one is one that I don't necessarily agree on. So the Six of Swords, the thoughts is the Suit of Swords, and the Six of Swords to me is not the girl's trip. At least not my girl. If I go on a trip with girls, it's not a Six of Swords for me. It's not the journey you embark upon because you're leaving behind a terrible situation and you're hoping for the best, but it's something you didn't necessarily want to do in the first place, and you're just really anguished and anxious, and the waters are choppy, and that's the Six of Swords to me. You're not supposed, the Six of Swords is not pleasant. The journey you're embarking upon in the Six of Swords is not a celebration of friendship. It's not a toast to being together. Of course, it can come after a Five of Swords. So if you have a Five of Swords situation, you may choose to get away from it all and go somewhere, or be somewhere with a friend. Absolutely. That would be more a girl's trip for me. But that's not the feeling of a Six of Swords. So, but that's the only card I, you know, I'm like, eh. Everything else really resonate, and I have to say this is I feel that this deck has a very unfortunate name because it says it's called the Millennial Tarot. So if you're a Gen X, for example, or Gen Z, you're like, oh, it's not for me. However, I'm not a millennial. I'm more like a cusper, and I can tell you all of these titles resonate with me. It's probably because I don't know, I feel like there's not such a major if you've been born, you know, from mid-70s till the end of the 70s, you're a cusper. So you're not necessarily, there's not that much of a difference between yourself and the very first years of the 80s. Whomever's been born in 1982, for example, will not necessarily feel, if they feel like a cusper, more like a millennial. And that goes the same for Gen Xers born in the late 70s or even mid-70s, like in my case. So I would say that if they had called it, I don't know, generational tarot or something like that, I don't know, I'm terrible with titles, but if they had called it a different way, I think it would have been, probably it would have had a different impact on the tarot community. I also feel like, and let me say, I love this deck. Okay, that's a given. But let me just say that the cards are just too big for me. I struggle with shuffling it. And although I have to say I love that they're so big on the other hand, because of course you see the artwork a lot better. And I've heard a lot of people complaining that this is, yes, this is, indeed, there is some use of AI generated artwork. I don't know the extent of it, and it was a debate in a lot of forums. Personally, I have to say I go back and forth. I'm sorry, I just don't know. I mean, to me, it depends on how much you used it, and is it entirely done out of AI? Is that only the product of a click of a mouse, or is it is there a lot of work behind it? There is a lot of work behind it, if not in the images themselves, definitely in the way in which the titles have been renamed. And let's leave it like that. It's, I don't, and look at the tower is the dumpster fire. Of course it is. I mean, there's so many, and the Ace of Thoughts is a vision board, absolutely. The Four of Fields is the binge watching. Yes, 1000%. So this is the way in which I go through these cards when I show this deck is, yes, it is. So I go, you know, I choose not to focus on one or another aspect of this deck. I choose to appreciate it for A, the way in which the cards give me prompts to talk about with my clients, because everyone really appreciates these cards when I used to do readings for them, and B, the fact that it actually gave me a lot by using it. And so this deck has become a workhorse, even though technically speaking I actually do struggle when I shuffle it. So a workhorse is, I feel like it's a deck that is also very easy to handle. This one isn't for me. I have heard, however, that the creators are thinking, planning a new edition with a different cardstock. I don't know whether that means that it's also going to be a smaller size. I have no idea, but you know, there is a possibility. I don't know. So this was the last prompt and the last deck, and in this really fun VR by the 3 Fat Readers, I will put the video, I will link it in the description box below, and I would love to see other responses from other tarot tubers, because I think it's a really cool tag. So thank you so much for staying with me till the end of this video. More to come. Have a great day.